Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Fear from 1990. So, I had gone on and done a poll at some point on my channel, and it seemed that people were to be somewhat interested in movies that were to have some kind of psychic element to it. Maybe it was to have people who could read minds, or maybe be able to move things with their mind, or any other kind of psychic abilities. Probably like scanners at one point. I probably should have gone on and actually reviewed that at some point in this channel, but I don't know. Maybe we'll get there. But regardless, we're kind of here right now. What is this movie about? So, Fear 1990 is a movie where we have a woman named Cassie, a psychic who is to make books about her previous endeavors of hunting down mass murderers. And so, as Cassie is to go on and seemingly build a successful uh, novel venture, she is to still want to go on and still help out the police from time to time to find mass murderers. And come to find out, the case that she is to kind of stumble upon in this movie is to really be a case that is to really go on and have her seemingly almost be outmatched, where Casey is to go on and find a mass murderer who also has the psychic ability. And that ends her leading against a character who's to be called Shadow Man. And eventually we'll find by the tail end of the movie that he's to just kind of be this movie clerk character, and they end up stating what his name is and stuff like that. But I'm just going to, of course, just call him Shadow Man through a good chunk of this film. So, Casey is to go on and throughout this film have certain people in her life come into jeopardy because of this Shadow Man knowing about her, and also knowing about the detectives that she is to be tied with, and to know about the friends that she used to go on and have. And also, like, Cassie gets to the point where she is just hooked into whatever that the Shadow Man is seeing, and she just can't turn it off. She can't pull away. And so this just kind of becomes really interesting, just to see, like, just Cassie here just being forced into this struggle of just seeing what she does not want to see. So this movie goes on, and of course is very entertaining, but then there's also other movies that are to be somewhat like this film. I had gone on and randomly actually watched a Anthony Hopkins film that had Colin Farrell in it called Solace at one point, and that movie is very much like this, very similar, I feel. And then, of course, I had gone on and seen quite a bit of a movie called The Gift, where and Keanu Reeves is in that film, and he goes on and he's like an a-hole guy. He's a jerk. He hurts his wife, and but like the whole movie is about this woman who's to go on and be this psychic, and she goes and does these readings, and then she also is to go on and try to help out the police find these murder victims and what have you. And also, I'd probably go on and say similar to this movie, because eventually, just kind of going to the rabbit hole of just psychic movies. Um, there is also the Jean Claude Van Damme movie Replicant that is very similar to this, and also like the Nicolas Cage Next movie, and of course, you can't go on and not mention the Christopher Walken Dead Zone movie, as well as uh, the show of same title and same kind of idea. I'm sure there probably is other, probably like just kind of like psychic movies, but very rare amount of air is there that eventually the person that is trying to be chased is to kind of catch on and what have you. And uh, extremely rare movies are to go on and have it where logically the other persons have like the same kind of ability coincidentally. So, and I also feel that there's probably a number of other movies that I probably should have gone and mentioned here, but I have forgotten. So, with that said, um, this movie to me was just very entertaining. I am to go on and say that uh, I was to possibly watch this just on YouTube because it was just available out there. But like the quality of the way in which I watched this wasn't the best, but I could get the gist of what was going on throughout the whole entire film. So but also, this movie's to be available on Tubi, Tubi. Rationally, I would have gone on and gone through any number of apps that I normally go through, but I couldn't find this movie available there. So I'm just suggesting for currently as the second this recording for you to go on and check out this movie on Tubi, Tubi, because it's available there for however long. Do not know, but it's available. And maybe you'll go on and get a crisper cut of this movie. But regardless, like when Casey goes through the vision of the killer, it seems to be kind of blurry. Like it's because, of course, it's to just kind of be that way. And also, supposedly Casey mentions that what she is to go on and get as far as when she is to like latch on to something, touch it, and then try to uh like follow the person that she used to try and follow. Like supposedly a lot of the stuff is like random. Like it's not like she can go on and touch something and just being like the license plate is XYZ number and this is this guy's phone number and this is this guy's home address. Like she is not that. Like all she can do is just watch this movie just play out in her head of what this guy is doing and hope that Casey can figure out some way in her mind to relay to someone else where this person is, where they can figure it out. And yeah, there are sometimes like in the laundromat and like later thing of it where they go on and they figure out what the laundromat's name is, and then they try to track this person down, but it all still leads to this cat and mouse rabbit hole of a film where like Casey is to try and best her better and have people try to go on and help her throughout this endeavor, as well as also some of her friends probably getting endangered because of Casey's just mistakes. So, with that said, I think that Fear uh, was a thrill ride. I feel that this movie was, I would say, good, solid, good. Again, like the biggest problem I feel is just the vision things that you kind of go into. Where you're just like, I don't know what everybody's kind of getting through that, of how well put together that's going to all make sense to everybody, and so I'm sorry about that, but I just wanted to go on and watch this kind of film. So, with that said, it was a good enough movie for me. I enjoyed it. So, uh, if you want to check out the YouTube version, you can, but I would recommend the 2B version. And with that said, I think it's about that time to just push into actual spoilers and the breakdown of this film so I can just go on and be able to just kind of get that out of the way because I know that's going to be the longest part of this entire review. So let me know in the comments below if you have ever gone on and seen other just kind of just psychic films of people who are to go on and be able to uh, tell you their fortune or tell you their future or to go on and be able to have dreams and the person dies or whoever the person draws the person that dies, because at some point I will go on and also cover those kinds of films because I am to have gone on and just kind of done a little bit of research recently, and hopefully I will go on and cover movies like The Incubus. The Incubus kind of looks interesting to me, where a person is to go on and while they dream, someone dies, and then when they wake, yeah, that person dies. It's like, all right, cool, like that's interesting. This is to also uh, have me go on and want to be interested in watching the movie called The Clairvoyant, which is about a woman who goes on and it's a draw certain people dying, and then it seems that it happens. Uh, Other than that, yeah, like other than the movies that I do have at some point plan to go on and check out, without a doubt, will just kind of be just kind of mental disorder films that will eventually lead to having certain people who have kind of like dual identities and what have you. And it's not like the movie Split, but like it's much older films that are go on and just kind of have certain kind of interesting ideas. And those might just be interesting films. Who knows? Or they might just be just outdated or overrated or whatever. And I may have wasted my time, but that will be fine because at the end of the day, I can say that I can just watch all these movies and just have fun. They're all easily available on Tubi, anyways. So uh, there is no pressure for me to go on and try to find a place to see these movies otherwise. Currently at the second of this recording. So with that said, but let me know in the comments below anything that you like, because it would actually go on and help out the comment section. I hope to get back to you as soon as possible if it seems like it's something that I can respond to, or if you just randomly just say anything that you'd like, blah, a fleur, or slew, or whichever you want to do. It does help out the video, but also I'll just be like, I have no idea what that means. And I probably won't respond to it just because of like, what? I'm like, huh? But then again, also, it'll all be in good fun. So, with that said, and then I'm just gonna get a bunch of random crap that I'm just that I'm just gonna actually have to be like, oh, I'm gonna have to like look through that and be like, oh yeah, somebody said some random crap that yeah. Um, but yeah, but if anything, like again, if you have any movies of psychic characters like the Nicolas Cage movie Next, or that I've already reviewed on the channel, and you can check that review out. Or just some movie that has some kind of psychic, maybe like Minority Report, which I've seen with Tom Cruise, and Colin Farrell. And yeah, let me know in the comments below if you want to go on and see a movie like that in the future of channel review. I'm sure probably won't do well in this channel, but maybe it'll be a fun thing to just check it out anyways. And I'm sure I'll probably forget any number of these movies that I've mentioned that eventually I should go on and put them as tags in this video. But then also uh, to maybe review them somewhere down the road. So let me know in the comments below all the movies, the titles of which that I already said. So maybe I can go on and be like, oh yeah, I should probably remember and review this at some point. But anyways, again, just trying to fill out all the gaps of the comment section. So, with that said, I'm gonna go on and take mere minutes out of this whole entire video to just scroll for a second here. So, I think it's about that time, of course, yet again, to go through the normal song and dance of it being about that time yet again, to of course go into spoil time. It's about that time into spoil this movie. Anything you want to know about the comments below of words, of things that you could just By all means, I've already said that a billion times already. So, also, maybe I may go on and learn something in the comments below. Why am I pushing this so much? I don't know. I don't really care. I'm at some point just realizing that I'm wiping myself out by just kind of just making this video even longer. So with that said, let's go into the very beginning of this piece. So, spoilers, everybody. In the very beginning of this film, we go on to have these officers or detectives, because there's guys in suits, and they're thumbing through this refrigerator, and they are finding these what they think is pig innards, but it's probably to be human innards. And so maybe this guy who is to be this mass murderer, this Scott Levi character, is to have nibbled on somebody. Who knows? This guy might just be some kind of weird mass murderer. Also, this film is to have taken place in 1985, supposedly in South Carolina. So I'm not quite sure if this is based on a true story or not, but I could care less because ultimately it was done in 1990. So yeah. Anyways, so we have Cassie, and she's touching this shirt and she's wrapping it around her hand. And she is turning to this detective, I think his name is Holcomb, and he has this eye patch. And he's like, Cassie, like, come on, like, give me something, darling. Where's the car? Uh, so Cassie's to go on and be looking through the eyes of the killer, but then also like she's to kind of just see this movie, and like it's not from the POV of the guy's eyes, it's like from like the side, um or like the front, or just kind of going on and just kind of seeing like around the area that this killer is to be within, which is technically right now this car. So Cassie's to go on and explain, or try to explain, this guy's car, and go on to also explain that there is to be a woman tied in the back seat of this car, and come to find out that the car is going to be coming lowing on gas, and the guy needs to probably get gas and go to the gas station. So this killer is to go on and define his killing as an urge. That seems to be what he ends up calling it in this film. So the killer goes on to make his way through these woods and through this location of this barn. So we also have at one point while this guy is driving, Cassie goes on and tells the detectives, officers, police, that at one point the sheriff's car had kind of drove by this killer's car, and they go on and they note that through the radio. So Cassie is telling these men that are these guys, detectives, that this guy is going into this barn with this woman carrying him or carrying her. So we have this table of weapons, and this guy goes on and grabs this blade, and it seems that he's going in for the kill, and Cassie's like get him, like come on, like you got to find him, like he's going to kill her, like come on, you gotta save her. So as it seems so close for the killer to go on and make his kill here, we all of a sudden have these doors bust open, and these cops are whipping out their guns like freeze. And so the killer goes on and makes his way to some gun, and the cops just blast and just mow him down, just like, yeah, just murder this dude, because of course, like, it's kill or be killed, sadly enough. So Holcomb is to go on and ask Cassie, it's like, well, hey, what happened? And Cassie's to go on and explain that he's dead and that the girl is safe. And so over the radio, one of the detectives is to go on and confirm this, and they end up saying the exact same statement. So we now have 4 years passing. Just a weird transition, but transition nonetheless. Cassie's to go on and seemingly have multiple books that have gone on to cover these non-fictional murders. And at some point, Jessica, Cassie's manager, is to go on and explain to her that, like, well, hey, all you need to go on and do is do one of these kind of non-fictional books that is to cover one of these murders, and then anything you write after that, like, anyone will just want to go on and just scoop up just because of how interesting it'll be. So, but if anything, 4 years later, we have Cassie at this kind of early morning show, this Daybreak America, I believe is what it's called. From the screen, I can kind of vaguely make it out. So Jessica is going on and getting coffee here from uh, uh, some gopher, uh, somebody that works in the show that, of course, just has to um, make everyone's lives a little bit better. I don't know exactly what that's called. I would just call them a gopher, sadly, because I don't know the exact behind the scenes term of who they actually are. So we have this interviewer who I believe it goes by the name Colin Hart, I believe, and so but I'm going to call him just interviewer because it's easier in my brain. So there's less that I have to remember here, and we of course go on and have to go back to 4 years ago in this interview and talk about what had happened, and that uh, Cassie had put a book together about that mass murderer, Leonard Scott Levy, and that really she has to go on and at some point have a new book, which of course would be called Split Reflections. And so we of course go on and now have the interviewer go on and ask uh, really just Cassie about her abilities and how exactly it works, or how she goes on and defines this ability. And so Cassie goes on and explains that she goes on and gets these impressions when she touches an item that is either connected to the victim or the killer. And so the interviewer goes on and asks her like specific questions about if like what she can touch can go on and lead to them kind of quickly finding the killer. And Cassie's like, no, like a lot of the stuff that she goes on and touches, like a lot of the stuff that she sees then after that is very random. Or sometimes I believe the adopted parents that are to go on and to have adopted Cassie, uh, like would call them like useless trivia knowledge or whatever, because we also come to find in the later part of the film, Cassie's to mention how she did go on and find her biological mother herself and like go to her place or her house and find out that her biological mother wanted nothing to do with her, sadly. Um, but knew that because Cassie had kind of touched this door and psychically just kind of knew this woman, and then kind of got the closure that she needed, but really like that was to just kind of be uh the later part of the tale of the film. But anyways, so but Cassie goes on and further goes to explain how, like, yeah, she is to, of course, be with the police doing this investigation, but she is not really as close as a cop or a detective or whatever. She's kind of like how Adrian Monk is in the Monk Show, where kind of Monk goes in and kind of looks around and then like kind of does his like weird goofy thing that he does, and then he goes on and says like, oh, this is not um like an accidental death, this is a murder, and then they go on and they have to figure out why that he says that. um Whereas uh Casey here is to go on and kind of touch something that is to be tied to the detective. And then she just starts going all on off about how she knows what uh, killer that this detective is going to be tied to, and that the killer is striking again, and so this and that. But she goes on and says in this interview here, back to the interview now, because I'm kind of getting kind of tangentially off here. So, but Cassie goes on and says like, well, hey, like I'm not packing a gun and making my way into these investigations. No, like, uh, but yeah, but I am closely connected to police doing these investigations, but I'm just not um, to, of course, uh, like be like one of them, and in a sense. So while this interview is going on, we have a man who goes to knock on a door, and it is to not be the front door, it is to bizarrely be the back door. And he is to have this kind of unusual tattoo upon his palm or his hand. And so this woman, Mrs. Reardon, goes on and answers the door like, hello. So after this interview seems to be done, there is to be a man that is to go on and be having this truck, and he closes his door, and as soon as the truck drives away, the guy is to seemingly exit the house. And this, of course, is to be the Shadow Man, the psychic killer. So Cassie is to go on and be done with the interview, and she's just kind of just fixing her and powdering her face and what have you. And so we have Jessica that is going on and talking to Casey after this interview is to go on and be done. And so Jessica is to talk to uh, people on the phone, one of them being Raymond Tarr. Uh, Tar will eventually be a character that will have Casey go on and actually have dinner with. And Raymond will go on and have a wife that'll be at this diner. And it seems that the wife will be like a big, huge fan. And yeah, so eventually Casey will have probably the worst kind of like interview-ish kind of thing where Casey, of course, will go on and lash out because she is having these horrible visions. But we'll get to that later. But for now, we have Jessica that is going on talking to Casey and stating that these people are really interested in what um, Casey has to offer as far as putting these books together, and that they think that she comes off as intelligent, attractive, charming, this and that, a bunch of just like these things here. And so they want to go on and give her a multi-book deal, and that again we go to the point where um Jessica is to tell Casey, it's like, well, hey, like, you can go on and you can just give them one real true non-fictional um psychic story, and they'll of course buy into that, and then you can go on and write whatever you want after that. And Casey used to go on and be like, well, hey, I just want a normal life. And so as Casey and Jessica start to exit the studio, they go on and they start to ask, like, since Casey used to want to go on and possibly get a normal life, maybe she used to want a boyfriend. And like Jessica is to ask Casey about like the host of the show. It's like, oh well, like I'm sure that host is pretty hot, right? He was kind of hitting on you. And Casey goes on to just be like, well, no, like I kind of read his mind, and like come to find out he like has a baby on the way, or something along those lines. And Casey used to go on and tell Jessica it's like the one man that she used to go on and want is one where she doesn't exactly have to go on and read his mind. And so Jessica and Casey like kind of go to the point of getting to their cars and kind of getting home. So Jessica then goes on and turns to Casey like, well, hey, enjoy that new house. And they kind of leave here. So Jessica or Jessica, Casey goes on to have bumped into a guy that had a bunch of paperwork within the studio. And as Jessica leaves, Casey decides that she needs to go back into the studio and follow up on something. And when she further decides to follow up on something, this is to go on and lead to uh, this news reporter who's on this television who's going on and uh, talking about this certain case. And so that then leads Casey to just kind of follow up on this and make her way to the police station, where she, of course, is to meet up with Detective Weber and Detective Wu. So come to find out, the captain that is to be of these two detectives seems to know about Casey, and it seems that uh, this captain is to be quite a bit of a fan. And so we immediately have Detective Weber that is looking at Casey. It's like, you know what? I don't know, whatever, like, hack snake oil thing that you're selling here, but like, if anything, like, you can kind of come with us and take notes, but I think what you're doing is some kind of like ruse or facade or whatever. But Casey then has to go on and like prove herself. So Casey goes on and is to, of course, to have given Weber this book, and Weber is to hand this book back to her. And Casey starts to completely go off because since he had touched this object and now she has touched it, she knows about him. And then also, she knows about Detective Wu. So Casey starts to go off about the case that Weber is to be involved in, about how their murderer is to have a bit of a blood shed, that is to have kind of words be spelled out upon a wall. And she's like, well, it starts with an F and it ends with an R, like fear, fear me. And so Casey is to go on and say that the killer is to go on and strike again, and that also that the blood that is to be sprayed or spelled out um, for every murder is to have been tied to previous victim, because the killer is to go on and save the blood from the last to carry into the newer victim. So Casey goes on and on about all of this. So that leads the detectives to go on and, of course, believe her. So, and then also she says like a number of other things about Wu, but like let's just kind of speed past that. So Casey is to go on and direct the detectives to the street and then to the house where the murder had happened, and uh, we will come to find that the woman um, is Mrs. Reardon, I believe. So we have Casey that goes on and tells the detectives that the murder did not go through the front door. He actually went around back, bizarrely. And so Weber goes on and tells Casey, it's like, well, you know what, that's all good and great and all, but how about we go on and just kind of knock um, at the front door and see if anyone answers. And Casey's like, well, no one's going to answer. So they do then trek back to the back door, and they are able to open said door. And so they start to make their way through the house, to come to find that there seems to be breakfast that is still there on the table. And Wu um, points it out to Weber. It's like, hey, this breakfast, it's still here and it's cold. So they make their way into the room that it seems that the murder had taken place. And Casey, of course, does not want to go on to where the actual little closet of the murder was to go on to happen, but she directs them of where the woman is. So we have Weber that opens the door and turns on this light to then see Miss Reardon hanging there, and of course the door ends up saying the words "fear me." So Casey is to, of course, go on and to have really gone on and helped these detectives with this case. So then she makes her way home and is to call uh, Jessica here to let her know that she's involved in this case now, and she had gone on and given the detectives like a few leads and this and that. And so uh, Casey is to, of course, tell Jessica that like this guy is like really bad, and that she hopes that he ends up getting caught. And so after the conversation that eventually ends between Jessica and Casey here, she's to go on and find her way into looking at her neighbor Jack, who is putting together this puzzle. And so Casey from a distance is seemingly helping Jack with this puzzle. Like, oh, that puzzle piece right there. And it's like, oh, okay. And then he puts it there. So we have Casey that goes on and is watching the news. And the news is to go on and cover about Mrs. Reardon's death and is to lead to the news going on and calling this killer the Shadow Man. And so for mass murdering like cases, it seems that the news should always try to give like a mass murderer some kind of weird nickname because somehow it seems that is a way to actually have the case actually go on and kind of get some traction for some detectives to have it seem that this like weird goofy nickname of things maybe gets people to spread the word about this killer and also maybe leads to help these detectives possibly solve these cases. That's why they always have these weird goofy nicknames for all these mass murderers. It's like, man, that always just kind of sounds weird and creepy that they always have to have weird yeah, because reasonably it's to go on and just kind of get some kind of if the name is interesting enough to just kind of get the buzz around and maybe get people to like kind of be talking about this whoever this murderer is so they can solve the case quicker. So Casey's to go on and write the Shadow Man name in this paper. So we later on have both the detectives and Casey making their way back to the scene of the crime. And so with that, Casey ends up getting a vision about what had happened and is to mention that this guy is to have a hunting knife and is to eventually in her mind start to play out the the killing and how the guy uh, had a hat on, but then switched to having a mask over his face. So the further and further that Casey starts to figure this all out, she all of a sudden is to seemingly be in this all of a sudden random location and she's not quite figure out exactly why it is that she is to have seen what she is to go on and see because it's not connected really to this murder. But come to find out, what Casey had gone on and seen was actually uh, the killer and where he is currently at his place. And eventually the Shadow Man will go on and tell Casey, it's like, well, yeah, like you saw me at my place. So the detectives are to go on and watch Casey, and it seems like she's not talking to them, so they kind of try and shake her out of what she's seeing. And then they go on and ask her, it's like, well, what did you just see? And Casey's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to process what I just saw. So, uh, um, let me pause here for 1 second. Okay, I had an issue trying to figure out where to like transition here, so that's kind of my stymie moment here. So And also, maybe what I had gone on and said earlier was something that I think also was probably possibly said here. But anyways, so Casey is again making her way, talking to Jessica, and Jessica goes on to hear Casey out about what had happened to her while she was giving this reading, and that like what she had gone on to eventually seen was just kind of weird. And eventually, Casey and Jessica make their way to this elevator, and there are way too many people in the elevator. And Jessica mentions that it's like, no, 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 like we're not going into this elevator because there's too many people, and I have this fear of suffocation. It's a weird childish fear. So we then transition to Casey late at night getting a phone call. A person that is to continue to call Casey, and it is this foreign gentleman that is to seemingly be talking non-English. Happens, and Casey's to go on and consistently tell this person that they have the wrong number, and so, but this person just keeps calling, and then all of a sudden, Casey gets interrupted by another man that she thinks is on the phone, but not quite. It's in her brain. It's in her mind. It is to be the Shadow Man. So the Shadow Man is to go on and tell Casey it's okay to be scared, and is to go on and just kind of taunt her here. And so we then transition to uh to Casey at this kind of dinner rendezvous with the Terra or the Terra uh, couple here, and so uh, who of course was Raymond or Ray. So and his wife. So they go on and uh, we of course I think have the wife mention how like she doesn't really to have wanted to have like made a trip here, but as soon as he was to go on and tell her that he was going to talk to Casey, uh, and Raymond's wife going on and realizing like, oh yeah, this um, like these are to go on or this person is to go on and be the author of the books that I've been reading, and I can't put down. Like at one point, she had kind of read them all in one sitting, and she was up to like 4 in the morning, something like that, because she just loved these stories. So while this is like further and further going on here, Casey ends up getting this drink, and then she accidentally drops it, and Jessica turns to Casey. It's like, "Hey, everything okay?" And no, it won't be, because Casey will go on and start watching through her mind and through her psychic visions the killer, the Shadow Man. So the Shadow Man will go on and drive and make his way to this mall and has this gun in the glove compartment. So the Shadow Man is to make his way into this mall, and then this leads to him going into the back of this mall to then find this woman who works at said mall, and the Shadow Man is to start to chase this woman. And Casey is to start to clutch onto these uh, table sheets, table, whatever the table thing is called. I don't know exactly, but she's like grasping on the table sheet. Um, and so the tabletop. Let's be safe by just saying that. So we of course then go on and have uh the Shadow Man. I think I'm just gonna call the Shadow Man Shadow for here on out. It'll be quicker that way instead of saying the Shadow Man 50 bajillion times. So Shadow tells Casey that the reason why he goes on and kills again and again and again is because the rush of knowing exactly how these people are to be afraid, and just the fear of it all is to be the thing that makes this all worthwhile, bizarrely, to this guy. And so Jessica, when realizing that Casey is now in this vision, Jessica is to ask Casey, it's like, well, hey, like, where is this guy at? Like, and so Casey understands that it's a mall. It's like, well, what mall? Like, we can go on and call the police and say where he's at. And Casey finds out that it's Town Hills Mall. It's like, okay, all right. So Jessica is to tell Casey, it's like, okay, now that we figured out where this killer is, like, let go and like just break away. And Casey's like, I can't break away. So Shadow goes on and is to take out his hunting knife and make it ever so closer to this victim, to this uh to this mall worker of sorts. And it seems Shadow is to come to find within this woman's mind that she had gone on and recently seen some horror flick, and this side of which that she is to see facing off against Shadow is to be very similar to one of these films, and Shadow is to pick up on that. So it seems that he is to go on and kind of dip into her fears. So the closer and closer that Shadow gets to this woman to murder her, he really goes on and hopes that she won't faint before he actually kills her. And as he's like touching her face and getting ever so close, and he's like, stay awake, stay awake. Oh no, she fainted. And so that is to go on and just kind of ruin it for Shadow, but he still has to go on and kill her anyways, because obviously she had gone on and seen him. So Shadow does go on and kill this woman, and on the wall again write the words "Fear me." So Weber and Wu, kind of not in like real like suit and tie garb here. Like we even have Weber who's wearing like a gold gym shirt. Funny enough, like I remember Weber, the guy who plays Detective Weber in this, like he was also in one of the later Jeepers Creepers movies. I think it was like Jeepers Creepers 3. Yeah, it was 3. Uh, like he ends up getting involved in those movies, and like he's also just kind of a detective in that. So it's kind of interesting, kind of seeing him here. But anyways, here's where Casey goes on and explains to both Weber and Wu how the killer that they're facing off against is to be a psychic like how she is, but if anything, uh, he's better than her. So Casey is now driving home, and come to find out, she is to start to get visions. So much so that she realizes that the killer is nearby her. So she goes on and decides to just park on this curb and run to this phone booth, or this telephone that looks it's somewhat like a phone booth, somewhat. Uh, and so Cassie runs to the phone to try and call the police. But then all of a sudden she notices Jack, a familiar face, and he's wearing what looks like a police uniform. So we just have Casey that tells Jack that there is a mass murderer that she is just kind of hunting down, and that he is to have this certain cap, and it's around this location, and for Jack to just start looking around at all the cars to see if this is going to match what she is to have described to Jack. So Jack bizarrely just does what Casey says. He believes her, and so he starts going through these cars, and he is to seemingly not be able to find this person that Casey is looking for. So Jack goes back to Casey and is like, "Yeah, I didn't find him." And so Casey turns to Jack, like, "Well, are you gonna radio this in?" And he's like, "Radio this in? What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Well, you're a policeman, right?" And he's like, "No, I'm a fireman." It's like, "Oh, okay, all right, well." So Casey then goes home with Jack, and Casey is to say to Jack, it's like, "Well, hey, like, thank you for going on and like following me home, and then also like staying here long enough to where I can go on and do this and that and this and that." So Jack is like, "Well, hey, yeah, no problem. If anything, I kind of wanted to finally like check out this place because your place is like 10 times bigger than mine." And so here's where we go on and have Casey, who has to go on and explain her abilities, that she's a psychic and that she's clairvoyant. And yesterday she had gone on to uh, be involved with the police on the Shadow Man's case, and that she's to also explain that uh, that this murderer is to go on and really quite easily evade the police because, of course, him having also abilities. So and it'll probably be something that he'll eventually see more about on the news or read in the newspaper the following day. So, as Jax is to go on and leave Casey, because he had grew up in a small town, he had grew up on a farm in Nebraska, and anything that he can go on and to have been worried about would be stuff like a an animal kind of coming at him from a good long distance away, and like that's as psychic as it seemed to have gotten in his kind of life. And so Jack goes on and explains to Casey how like he doesn't believe in psychics and UFOs and all that kinds of stuff. And Casey turns to Jack. It's like, well, like there is obviously proof that I've gone on and actually done these things, and Jack is like, well, yeah, like I get it, and but I just like that's just my belief system. And so Casey just turns to Jack and it's like, well, hey, like at least you tried, at least you believed me, like that's good enough. So eventually they go on and they do some exchanging of phone numbers. Well, kind of it's one sided as Jack is to supposedly give his phone number to Casey, and there seems to be a little bit of a delay of Jack giving Casey the phone number, and Casey's like, "Well, I'm not going to go on and read your mind to try to figure out what your phone number is." And Jack is like, "No, no, no, no. I just didn't remember what it was off the hand, off the cuff. So like, I just needed a second." So uh, Casey just actually liked that. So Casey then makes her way back to her home and is to um is to again get another phone call. So and so we of course go on to have uh Casey going and talking to, I believe, Jessica, but I think the person who answers says it's Sam, so I'm a little confused. Um, maybe I got the names wrong. Not quite sure, but anyways, so uh, I thought it was Jessica was her best friend. Maybe I was wrong the whole time. Well, anyways, uh, we have Casey who's going on uh and talking about her future book and what they're going to use as characters, and eventually also going on and talking about the fireman that Casey had just met, and so all of a sudden Casey again is to have another vision, and it seems to be that uh, that the Shadow Man is to go on and be at this strip club. It looks like, and Casey is starting to flip out, is desperately crying out for Jack to just kind of help her here, as like she's kind of stuck in this vision, and she's right off this balcony, and maybe she'll fall off the balcony. So, and then also like with these visions, like she kind of doesn't really have actual control of her body. So Casey is crying out for Jack, and so Jack runs over to Casey's place, realize that the fence that he was at before is now locked, so he jumps over this fence, runs to Casey's door, is knocking on the door because yeah, he doesn't really have a key. So as the Shadow Man is to go on and just talk um about how it's like it's so nice to of course have someone who can kind of be with me and like have someone like me, as well as also uh, then I'm sure Casey would want to go on and see this guy's face. And so he goes on and looks in the mirror and then kind of shows his face. And what Casey ends up seeing freaks her out. So Casey then opens her door and grabs Jack and hugs her, or hugs him. So the following day, we transition here to Casey going on and talking to Jack, and Jack has mentioned like, well, hey, like I have a 72-hour shift, and maybe you should go on. Maybe you should kind of just um, stick close to the police to try to catch this guy. So we have Casey that turns to uh, the detectives here, and they're assuming that the killer is to kill in a pattern. Kill in a pattern meaning that he is to have a certain fixed location that he goes on and kills people because it's to actually be nearby his actual place. Um, if you want to go on and to have kind of gone back to the quote of don't crap where you eat, like I think it would be weird if this killer actually goes on and is to actually like kill like near his own neighborhood. But if anything, these guys are just kind of grasping at straws here to try to figure out where this guy could strike next, or that this guy goes on in a pattern of kind of killing in a certain location. So the detectives go on and they start driving with Casey uh, to try and track down this killer. And Casey ends up getting I believe, like a Coke bottle or I think it's just some pop bottle. And as she touches it, she goes on to say that, "Oh, woo, hey, you're moving out. Like, oh, good for you. Like you're leaving town. Like, where you going? Like, it's definitely going to be a good spot." And Weber's like, "Say what now?" And Wu is like, "Yeah, like I just gave my notice. Like, we're moving." And Weber's like, "What? Like, dude, like I'm your partner. Uh, like like we had each other's backs, like I saved your life and you saved my life and blah 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 blah." And so we go on this big huge rant here, and so while that's going on, we have Cassie who's getting these visions, and that of course leads Cassie to try and figure out where this next kill is going to be. And so Cassie ends up mentioning that this next house is be someplace residential, and in the back of the house there's to be this uh this kind of hide a key kind of thing in the backyard. So this guy makes his way into this home and looks into the refrigerator, and there seems to be a certain number of leftovers. And Shadow continues to make its way further and further into the house. And so it seems there is a specific amount of leftovers that are within this home. And Jessica also says that the residence is kind of like nice and neat. And so the further and further that Jessica keeps talking about this place, Weber ends up asking Casey, it's like, well, hey, like, have you seen a TV? And Jessica's like, well, yeah, like, is there a trophy on the TV? She's like, yeah. And Weber's like, he's at my house. And the kids are going to be home fairly soon here. So the kids are making their way through the front door, and Detective Weber is running into the home. And so Shadow is off in the distance. He's uh, just kind of near, I believe, this other adjacent sidewalk going on. And we have Shadow threatening Casey here, like, well, hey, like, stay away from the police, um, or I'm gonna go after this detective's perfect wife and children, and that I don't want anyone else involved, like just you and me and the fear. So Casey realizes that there's no stopping this guy, because at this point, like, if she tries to go on and continue with this case, that Weber's family will be in jeopardy, as well as also like anybody that Casey knows will also be in jeopardy if Casey just tries this. So Casey decides that she wants to go on and she just wants to leave town. She just wants to get out of here, and that hope that maybe uh, that if Casey is not involved in this case, that maybe the killer Shadow will go on and slip up, or this and that, and maybe somehow the detectives will figure out a way to catch this guy. So Casey makes her way onto this airplane and is to kind of say her goodbyes to Jessica. She's not leaving permanently, she's leaving temporarily. So Jessica watches as Cassie leaves on this airplane, and coming to find out, uh, Casey is to watch via the window of this airplane to see Jessica at the airport, kind of looking at Casey. So we all of a sudden see in the background that Shadow is behind Jessica, because Casey had gotten a vision of Shadow racing into the airport to get to Casey, because he's very upset that Casey is trying to leave. You can't leave. Get off the plane, Casey. And like, I'm warning you. I'll do anything to stop you. This and that, everything, and so on and so forth. So this then forces, like, Casey's hoping that the quicker that this plane can leave, that she can of course go on and escape from Shadow. But so Casey goes on and talks to the stewardess, like, well, how soon are we gonna go on and just kind of just wrap this plane up and close these doors and this and that? And the stewardess is like, well, like, it'll just be a minute from now, any minute from now. And Casey's like, it's not soon enough, because Casey is thinking that if she can just get away to New York, that she will get away from this guy. But come to find out, Shadow will go on and kill any one of Casey's friends, or uh, like the detectives guys and this and that, every hour that Casey is to be gone. So Casey has to go on and then rush her way to get off of this plane, and Casey is to state that she will scream and cry until she gets what she wants. And so that then forces her off the plane, and like, she gets off the plane, but still Shadow follows Jessica to her car and grabs her and takes his bag and suffocates her, because he knows that this is Jessica's fear, her greatest fear, because at one point, Shadow had read, of course, Casey's mind. So Shadow suffocates and kills Jessica, and Casey tells Shadow, it's like, well, hey, you didn't have to kill her. Like, uh, I left the plane. I did what you wanted, and he's like, well, hey, I warned you. Like, hey, I told you. Uh, so the following day, we have Jack coming over to uh to talk with Casey, and so he's like, well, hey, I brought over some breakfast to like, but it seems like also his breakfast is like red and white wine, I think. So both Jack and Jessica, Casey, my bad. Casey start talking here, and so Casey is to explain to Jack how good this killer is. That the killer is to go on and is to buy a certain assortment of items that Casey had gone on to need to replace at one point. And so at first, it was to be her perfume, her scent. And then it was to be a pair of shoes that she needed to replace. And then the last thing that the killer had bought for her and sent to her was a pair of like a nightie or lingerie or something. So Casey then goes on to tell Jack that maybe it's not a good thing for Jack to be here because it's dangerous being around Casey, and that the killer is going on and wanting to kill all of her friends. So Jack then turns around to Casey and it's to tell her, it's like, well, hey, like, you know what? Like, I've been a fireman for a very long time. Like, I've been a fireman for 11 years. So, like, Jack is to go on and tell Casey about, like, this worst possible scenario where he was to have gone on and fell, like, 30 feet um, at one point. And, and, let me pause here for 1 second. But Jack is to go on and tell Casey here, like after this whole like huge story, that really Casey should not go on and just wait for like danger to come for her. That Casey should go on and figure out a way to like instead of this guy charging after her, how about she go after him and track him down and like let's go after this guy. Let's find him. Like it's either killed or be killed at this point, and it's better that Casey is to figure out a way to get the upper hand of this guy than than fall so behind. And so Casey then is decided to go on and backpedal here, and is to make her way back to the mall of one of the victims' uh, murder cases. So Casey goes back to the mall, goes back to the place where someone had gotten killed, and there are to be like a bunch of mannequins and locker rooms and stuff like that that are to be in play here. And so Casey is to be ever so close to the location of where the murder actually took place. And then Casey is to say, like, I really don't want to go on and actually go in the area where the actual murder happened. And Jack is like, oh, okay, well, you know what, like, that's completely okay. And so, if anything, like, how about we go on and just take this time to, like, just kind of figure out how we can take this whole like exercise that you've been doing, and how about we try to adjust it? Like, how about we figure out a way to uh to have a different emotion that is to be slightly tweakingly different than uh like the normal emotions that you would go through for any number of visions that you would go on and have. So Jack is like, well, hey, how about you just uh talk to me, like normal. If anything, just kind of get this off your mind, and like just tell me about yourself. And so uh here is where Casey goes on and explains about a few days before her fifth birthday. uh she was living with her foster parents, and she at one point had suddenly known where her real mother had actually lived, her biological mother. And so Casey had gone on to a bus and made her way to the very front steps of her biological mother's home. And as she used to go on and knock on the door, the further and further she is to have had the delusion that her biological mother would open the door and welcome her with open arms and love her and what have you. Instead, Casey is to realize that her biological mother wanted nothing to do with her. So that all of a sudden uh, has Casey start to get something, start to get a vision. And in that vision, that is to lead her to this laundromat. So, but then she's like slightly tweakingly losing it. She's starting to see like this uh, this God, what is the term? The there's the Tide detergent. There is to be uh, the God, what is the word? The thing that you hold your clothes in, not the hamper, but uh, the the box like thing. I don't know the exact term, but if you know what I'm talking about, then I won't have to go on it and say much more than this. But uh, the, the hamper, the whatever, uh, the thing that you're to go on and carry your clothes in when you go on and do like a washer and dryer situation. Basket, like a basket, clothing basket thing. So Casey is to go on and explain to Jack that the killer is to be at the laundry, and so this son of a bit is doing his wash. So Jack is like, okay, Casey, now we need to go on and we need a name. Give me the name of this laundromat. Figure it out. So Casey's to figure out that it's Cooperman's. and it's like Cooperman's, Coin Op, Laundry, and he's like, all right, so and so here's where they go on and they start racing off, and they want to get to this laundromat, and Casey's a little afraid of the fact that uh, that if they go after Shadow here, that maybe they'll go after Detective Weber's family if Casey doesn't catch this guy, and Jack is like, you know what, I get that fear, but like, man, if we can go on and maybe if we can track this guy, maybe we can get some kind of something that is to be able to definitively like catch this guy. Maybe we can go on and find that he gets into a car. We can get a license plate. We can get something. We can maybe even get a better look at this guy to see what he looks like, and maybe you can go on and like give a sketch to the police officers to then again try and catch this guy. So as Shadow is to go on and open his mail, and he's waiting for his clothes to dry. Uh, Eventually, we have Shadow that realizes. I'm sorry if I say we have a lot. It's such a transitional word for me. I know a lot of people probably get annoyed with that. I'm sorry. It's just there was at one point where I'd go on and say words like eventually, or we have is just a transitional word, and I probably use it way too much. It's just a knee jerk thing. Instead of saying like, instead of saying like we have, that just becomes the just like my little break, my little pause, to try and narrate the situation here. But I should probably try to break away from like saying those two words too often, because I'm sure people get annoyed with that anyways. But there's nothing I can like. At some point, it just triggers in my brain. Just say those words. I'm sorry for those of you that quite easily get annoyed with the saying of tale of twine of whatever. But so as the tale spuns on, maybe I'll go on and have that be my transitional thing, and then people will get annoyed with that, I'm sure. As the tale twists, the people are like, what does that mean? As we gather, yeah. But also, some people may go on and they may notice it, may not. Whatever. It's just whatever. I'm sorry. Yeah. Anyways, anyways, trigger words like if he says that 20 more times, yeah, it's gonna happen. I'm sure it is. So, uh, Jack turns to Casey, and Casey is to tell Jack that Shadow is to start to figure things out, and he's tearing the place up, and he's grabbing all of his clothes crazily to chuck into this laundry basket. That's what I was trying to say. Laundry basket. And because he doesn't want at all the police getting DNA of any bit of this clothes, or for Casey to touch any of these items and try and find him. So, but Shadow is livid at this point. He is hopping mad. So, Jack and Casey make their way to this laundromat in the nick of time, and so but the nick of the time. But then I also say that like by the time that they get to this, Casey loses them, but it's okay because uh Shadow will start following them, so they'll be able to at some point control the situation. Uh, because Jack ends up turning to Casey, but like, well, hey, which way? Like, where did he go? Because because Casey tells Jack that he is in the back alley of this laundromat, and so Jack, with this huge flashlight, chases after this guy, and it's like, oh, where did he go? And Casey's like, I don't know, I lost him, and he's like, oh god, well, uh, it's like, well, hey man, like you caught him off once, you're gonna do it again, like, uh, so Shadow now very upset here uh with Casey specifically here. And so Shadow tells Casey, it's like, you know what? You you were like the safest person in this entire city. I was never gonna go on and go after you. And now you're next. I'm going after you. I'm gonna make you hurt. Like I'm gonna make um like all bets are off, the gloves are off, like I'm going after you. So very heavily paraphrasing at some point here. But so Jack ends up turning to Casey and is to admit it's like, well, you know what, like more than likely like this guy's kind of like skipped town, but like if this guy is going on and doing his laundry at this location, like he must be nearby somewhere. So come to find out, Casey is having yet another vision, and so Casey is having a vision of Shadow making his way through a house to get to his garage to get into a car, and at some point the car is going on and driving around, and the car makes its way to be right behind both Casey and Jack. And so Casey is seeing the vision of what Shadow was seeing, and so she turns and then she realizes, oh, that's me. So she recognizes the truck and everything. So Casey tells Jack that like, hey, he's right behind us, and so Jack is really tempted to grab his flashlight and go after this guy, and Casey's like, no, 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 don't do that. Like, he has a gun in the glove compartment. Like, he may go on and shoot us and kill us. So we need to just go on and we need to just go to a very public area, and maybe he'll be afraid, and maybe he won't go any further, and maybe we'll lose him. So come to find out, Shadow would be like, oh, you thought I was going to fear a place like this because of how public it is. No, no, no. I love a place like this. So we, so Casey and Jack make their way to this what it looks like this amusement park. Jack is talking to the security guard. It's like, well, hey, I want to know who your head security guard guy is, because there's a situation going on here, and I need to get his assistance, this and that. So Casey is going on ahead, and Jack is asking Casey, it's like, what are you doing? Like, where are you going? And Casey tells Jack, it's like, well, I think I'm the only one that that can do this. Like you said, like just kind of charging him before he can charge you, yada yada. So Casey starts to make her way through this amusement park to find this chamber of fears. I think the words that are to be chamber of fears, I think, are in Spanish. Uh, except for like I think fears is actually in English, but the middle word is day, and that's um in because it's de, and so I think that's or it's chambre de fear. So I think that's actually in Spanish, where I think day is of, and chambre or is chamber. Anyways, so Casey makes her way into this chamber of fears, and it's to be this kind of mirror room of these kind of mirror reflections. So I always love this kind of visual in these kinds of films because we go on to see like a Bruce Lee movie that is to be very iconic to a lot of people. And he ends up having like a mirror match with this one villain in one of his kung fu movies. And towards the end of the movie, the Alec Baldwin movie, The Shadow, there's like a mirror match thing in there. I'm sure there's probably a number of also other things that are to have like like the Jack Black Goosebumps movie is to have a mirror room or Hall of Illusions and what have you, that is to be just kind of a room full of mirrors. And this kind of environment like never fails to just be interesting. So Casey makes it into this fun house of mirrors, and so does Shadow. So as consistently Shadow talks to uh, Casey here, he's like, well, hey, now we're going to finally go on and meet face to face. And maybe I should finally tap your shoulder and introduce myself. And this, like, he says all this stuff kind of while they're going on and going through this whole this run through this park. And like, it's not all going to be right here. I'm very heavily paraphrasing here just to get this kind of done and over with. So, and plus also realizing that it's pretty dang close to the wrapping up of this movie as far as minutes is concerned. So, Casey starts breaking the mirrors, and Shadow laughingly is like, "Oh, that hurt. Like, you're never going to go on and hit the right one." And Casey is like, "Oh, well, uh, like, you knew that we were following you tonight, and not because you read my thoughts, was because you actually read Jack's. Well, Jack is long gone from here, and so Casey then goes on to realize that she can figure out where Shadow is within this place, and she takes a big swing and she hits right on to Shadow, which hurts, I think, his arm, and then he kind of goes down, but then he starts to run and he goes through this mirror that is to uh go into this other section of House of Mirrors, and he then goes on to ram himself through this wall to then run through this stairwell to make his way to this window. And this window is to be right very next to this Ferris wheel, this amusement park ride that is to, of course, have these little seat things that kind of go just around and around uh, in a very just way of which that you can kind of look upon the environment, and like it's really just a very slow moving kind of ride of sorts, and it's all just like an observation kind of uh, thing to just like ooh ah look at all of this and so on and so forth. And then maybe also if you're probably maybe looking for somebody, or maybe you need to figure out where to go next, a Ferris wheel is always an interesting uh, kind of ride to check out. So Casey has her big fat flashlight and is going to try and attack Shadow here because it's like, hey, it's either her or him. So the closer and closer that Casey tries to get to Shadow, Shadow then runs from the window to then jump into the Ferris wheel because there is uh, one of the ride seats that is just wide open. So Shadow then tells Casey, it's like, aha, well, uh, like too bad, Casey. Like I'll see you again sometime, maybe next time, or this that. So Shadow is to go on and start to go through the rotation of this ride, and is to tell the person who is manning this wheel, like, hey man, get me off. And the guy who's controlling the ride, it's like, well, hey, next time. So Casey realizes that she's only going to have one more shot at this. So Casey jumps onto the ride. It is now like there is this back and forth kind of wrestling match between the two of them. And Jack is to make his way to see this Ferris wheel, and to see Casey and see Shadow just kind of duking it out here. So by the end of this tale here, Shadow is to kind of slip from being away from off of this Ferris wheel ride to then just be grabbing onto a piece of it, and of course with Shadow starting to slip here, Shadow then tells Casey that I'm going to die now, Casey. And so he drops and he falls from a great distance, and he smashes through uh, uh, into the ground, and we see the doll hand that is to be seemingly having blood residue upon it. So we then next see the police officers, and they're kind of clearing the scene here to go on uh, and finish up their whole investigation. And we have Casey that turns to the detectives uh, after this, and I think she goes on and tries to ask him, like, well, hey, like, would you mind if your character is in my next book? And the detective goes on and it's like, well, yeah, like as long as you go on, you spell my name right. So Casey then makes her way back to Jack, and like it seems that the two of them are eventually going to go on and end up together. And Casey says to Jack, it's like, well, yeah, like that she's gonna be ending up with Jack just because Jack will be the one guy that she doesn't have to go on and read his mind and this and that. It's like the whole bringing back of that. And Casey ends up asking Jack, like, well, hey, are you hungry? And she's like, well, yeah, Chinese food sounds great. And then they walk off and they wrap up this film. So I think I'm gonna go on and wrap this up here so I can get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.